You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. Now I feel it breaking out like an echo. Echo in my
morning, everybody. How's everyone doing this today? All right, let's stand together this morning. We're going to sing some songs together, and as we do, I just encourage you guys, let's sing loud and let's sing out and let's sing to our God because He is worthy of our worship and worthy of our praise. And so as we sing these songs, let's do it together. Here we go. Chains around us, by your grace we are no longer bound, no longer bound. You call me out from the grave, you call me into the light, you call my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Feel the darkness shaking, all the dead are coming back to life, come back to life. Hear the song awaken, all creation singing, we're alive. You're alive. You call me out from the grave. You call me into the light. You call my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. What a love, love we found. Death can't hold us down. We shout it out, we alive, cause you're alive. And what a love we found. Death can't hold us down. We shout it out, we alive, cause you're alive. And what a love we found. Death can't hold us down. We shout it out, we alive, cause you're alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Man, well, hey, we're going to teach you guys a new song today, and it basically talks about the fact that together we all have the same testimony that Jesus came and He died on the cross for us, and because of that today we can be that we're saved and we're justified, and that today we can stand before God together as one people. And so let's sing this together. I saw Satan fall like lightning. I saw darkness run for cover. But the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. I believe in signs and wonders. I have resurrection power. Still the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. My praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Oh yeah. Come together, sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed with water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Oh, our God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'm testified by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Oh yeah. How many of you guys know that because we're not dead this morning, that means that Jesus isn't done with our story today, and He's continuing to work in and through our lives? And so let's sing this together. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Oh yeah. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'm testified by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is the life. This is my testimony from death to life, 'cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. There is healing in the power of the Lord Most High. There is courage in the shadow of His wings. There is peace unending over all my life. There is freedom that washes over me. I find all I need here in your presence, Lord. I open up my soul and you fill me up with all I need here in your presence, Lord. Where blessings overflow, there's always abundantly more. Oh yeah. There is rest in the goodness of the Lord my God. There is treasure in the kindness of my King. There is comfort in knowing your unfailing love. My provider, you set my spirit free. I find all I need here in your presence, Lord. I open up my soul and you fill me up with all I need here in your presence, Lord, where blessings overflow. more than I can ask or see, more than I can fathom. God, your love for me is better than I imagined, more than I can ask or see, more than I can fathom. God, your love for me is better than I imagined, more than I can ask or see, more than I can fathom. God, your love for me is better than I imagined. I find all I need here in your presence, Lord. I open up my soul, you fill me up with all I need here in your presence, Lord. Where blessings overflow, there's always abundantly all I need here in your presence, Lord. I open up my soul, you fill me up with all I need here in your presence, Lord. Where blessings overflow, there's always abundantly more. Oh yeah, I find all I need here in your presence, Lord. I open up my soul, and you fill me up with all I need here in your presence, Lord. Where blessings overflow, there's always abundantly more. Speak to me when the silence stills my voice. You understand me. You understand me. Come to me in the valley of unknowns. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. Bigger than I thought you were. Bigger than I thought you were. And I believe to help my unbelief. You understand me. You understand me. Help me reach the faith that's underneath. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. Bigger than I thought you were. negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. Bigger than I thought you were. So Lord, today we just bow our hearts before you. And Lord, we just declare, or God, we are so thankful that you are always, God, for us, God, that you are always leading the charge, God, for us in our lives, God, that no matter what we go through, Lord, you are going before us, and that you are being the perfect Father and just making our path straight. And God, we just ask that today in this place, God, as we hear from your word, God, that your word would change us forever. God, that it wouldn't be something that we just hear, God, and that it just kind of goes over our heads, or God, it goes one ear and out the other. But Lord, that today that your word would sink into our hearts, Father, into our minds, God, and change us from the inside out. We love you, and we praise you. And everybody today said a big amen. Come on, let's give God some praise this morning. You guys can be seated.
No matter how old we are, we always remember what our dads say and do.
My dad is more like Jesus than your dad.
Nuh-uh. My dad doesn't let anybody eat any food until we pray for it.
My dad prays for 1 minute every day.
You know what? Our church has pancakes.
This is what my sister and mom use for their blush. My dad says that mean kids never know what they're talking about, because their parents don't know what they're talking about either.
My dad says to punch meanies in the face. Then my mom says, don't ever do that. And my dad goes to time out.
My dad's beard is itchy whenever he kisses me.
My dad takes me to church so we could learn to be just like Jesus.
My daddy prays for me. Then he makes me stop talking and go to bed. Then I get a flashlight and read my comic book.
That's a sin. He's sinning.
No, I'm not.
Sinner.
No, I'm not.
R2, R2,
I'm
R2.
not.
My dad said that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it.
My dad never stays mad at me.
My dad taught me to forgive because Jesus forgives us every time we ask.
I want a mohawk.
I wish I had hair.
It's okay. Your hair will probably grow back.
Thanks for being our dads for all our lives.
Well, welcome, church, and happy Father's Day to all of our amazing dads. Can we just give it up for the dads real quick? Here's the thing. I know exactly how hard you guys work because myself, I am a dad of 4, okay? I have 3 beautiful girls, pray for me, and 1 3-year-old rough and tumble boy. So pray for me even harder, okay? So I know exactly how hard you guys work. But here's the thing. Your family knows how hard you work too. So moms, kids, I say today, since we know how hard dad works, we make it all about him, okay? Let's cook his favorite meal, even if it has onions in it. Let's let him watch his favorite movie. And by all means, laugh at his cheesy dad jokes. Can you do that? Can you laugh at his cheesy dad jokes? But if you're a dad in the room today, then I want to give you an opportunity to pick up a really cool gift we have for you as you exit today at the end of service. It is a really neat credit card size multi-tool. We handed these out at our Father's Day drive-thru on Thursday, and if you didn't have a chance to come by and get that, then we want to give you an opportunity to pick one up today as you leave. But we also want to give you a chance to enter in for our Father's Day raffle. We are going to be raffling off a complete DeWalt tool set. This thing comes with drills, it comes with a flashlight, it comes with a saw, it comes with the batteries, a charger, and it all goes into a really neat carrying case. It basically comes with everything except a shovel, which is too bad. Do you guys want to know why it's too bad? Because the shovel was a groundbreaking invention. Just getting you guys warmed up for the dad jokes today, all right? Hey guys, I don't want to miss an opportunity for a dad joke, and we also don't want to miss an opportunity to connect with our first-time guest. If you are a first-time guest, maybe here on site today, or maybe you're watching at home from Facebook or YouTube, then we want to connect with you. We want to connect with you on this journey. So I'm going to ask you, if you're a first-time guest, take your phone out. It's really easy. Take your phone out and text NEW, N-E-W, to 833-694-0128. This is going to give us a chance to connect with you and let you know some really cool things that we have going on here at the Worship Center. But also, if you're a first-time guest right here on site today, then I'm going to ask you to come visit me at the first-time guest table in our main lobby as you exit today. We're going to have a really, really cool gift for you. So be sure to stop by and get that really, really cool special gift just for you. But speaking of a special gift, we are going to be doing a really special gift. Matter of fact, a bunch of special gifts for our Wombaland and TWC kids. On June 24th, from 4 to 7, we are doing something called Summer to Go. This is basically a gift drive-through. It's for our Wombaland and TWC kids. Basically, they're going to come through, they're going to see some of their favorite leaders, and they're going to start out by being handed a sand bucket. And as they go through the drive-through in the car, all of their leaders are going to be there. They're going to be putting all kinds of cool toys in the bucket, like a water gun, water balloons, sunglasses, even a pool noodle at the end. But here's the really exciting thing, okay? At the very end of this drive-through, we are going to have a dunk tank set up. And in that dunk tank is going to be some of their favorite leaders. And the kids are going to have the option to dunk or not dunk that leader. And here's the thing, every kid I've talked to so far is going to dunk and is going to dunk the leader. And that's what I'm expecting. And we're looking forward to it because it is hot out there, right? It is hot during these summer months. So be sure to bring your kids to Summer to Go. It's going to be a really amazing event for them. And it's just an opportunity for us to love on the kids of Wombaland and TWC kids. But finally, before we get into the message, I just want to remind you that we have several different options to give here at the Worship Center. You can give online by going to twc.church. You can give through our mobile app by texting TWC Church to 77977. You can give by mailing in a check to the office, or if you're here today, you can give by dropping your offering in one of our giving buckets as you exit today. But whichever way it is you choose to give, I just want to say thank you. Because of your faithfulness to give, we're able to get creative and do really cool and neat things like Summer to Go for our kids here. So thank you so much for your faithfulness, and thank you for your giving. Now, before we get into the message, check out the rest of these announcements.
Hi, my name is April, and no matter where we are or how we're meeting together, here at TWC, we're all about leading people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. The CARE Network is excited to announce that we're launching the TWC Prayer Wall on twc.church/prayer. This will be a place for anyone to submit a prayer request and praise report, as well as a place for our prayer warriors to go and lift these requests before the Lord. We encourage everyone to frequently visit this wall and spend time praying over each request. Let's see how God moves in and through our church. Guess who's coming back? That's right, Wombaland Clubhouse, and TWC Kids are ecstatic to be coming back Sunday, July 5th for the 9:30 and 11:15 services. Capacity will be limited, so while you're reserving a seat for yourself, you'll have the option to reserve one for your 0 through 5th graders as well in each of their environments. A few extra precautions will be taken to ensure that your little ones and students are as safe as possible, with temperature checks, hand sanitizer as they enter the room, and face coverings are recommended for K through 5th grade, but not required. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to call the office to speak with Sherry or Zach. We look forward to having your kids back. Now, let's join lead pastor Justin Crispin for week 3 of Daniel. Please sit back and enjoy the rest of the service.
Man, I'm so glad that you're here today, and if you're watching online, glad you're joining us today. We are going to be continuing on our conversation in the book of Daniel, but before we do, I want to pose a question to help frame our talk today, and that is this. Have you ever seen someone go through a terrible experience, whatever it is, maybe a loss of a loved one or maybe a financial crisis, but just a terrible situation, and wonder how they could move forward with their life? Have you ever, in a sense, walked with someone that went through such a terrible time, and the strength that they exhibited, or the calmness and just keeping their head held high, by walking with them through that and the strength that they displayed, did that make you wonder, could I be that strong if I face that? Or maybe you even thinking to yourself, no way I could be that strong as strong as they are as they walking through that. Right now, I'm walking with about 5 different people through some very trying and terrible circumstances. So whatever we feel that we're feeling right now, dealing with quarantine and social distancing and all that, just imagine going through a tragedy, a loss of a loved one during this time. It's tough. And so as I'm walking with them through this, on top of all this other stuff that's going on, I'm just shocked. And I'm a person of faith, and I'm a preacher, for crying out loud, and I love Jesus, and I look at their faith, I look at their strength, and I'm just blown away. And I'm like, did they read a portion of the Bible I haven't got to yet? Is there a secret? And come to find out, there is a secret. There is a secret strength that we'll find out in Daniel chapter 3. And so it won't be a secret after this message, all right? Are we excited about that? So it's not going to be a secret. But there's a secret strength. There's something that you discover that you won't discover any other time. And hopefully that'll help bring comfort to us today. But we are in a series called Daniel. And as we're looking at this book of the Bible, which is a fascinating book of the Bible, which is written thousands of years ago, and yet it seems so applicable to today. And the reason why is because Daniel answers this question: how can I be faithful and influential in a world hostile to my faith? How can I be faithful and influential in a world that's hostile to my faith? Because that's, in a sense, what Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, or their Hebrew names, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, that's where we find out they lived life in a hostile world, in a hostile empire, ripped from their family, ripped from all comfort, ripped from their religion, and placed in this kind of social experiment, or this social re-engineering from being Hebrew to Babylonian. They were trying to be indoctrinated, and as they're being indoctrinated, they're in this hostile world, and yet they remain faithful to God. No matter what they faced, no matter what kind of persecution they faced, they remained faithful. But not only were they faithful, but what blows me away is that the world that they were in, that was hostile to their faith, they began to influence a hostile empire. And I think that is fantastic. So if you and I ever find ourselves in a quote-unquote hostile environment, it doesn't mean that we lose sight that we can still, through God's help, influence it for better. And we're called to not just be faithful, we're called to influence the world around us. So, last where we left off in Daniel chapter 2, Daniel helped King Nebuchadnezzar, which is the king of that empire, this pagan king and this pagan empire. He helped interpret, not only told the dream, but interpreted the dream. And the dream was, in a sense, the foretelling of all these different empires that would kind of run the world, so to speak. And so that dream must have really shook Nebuchadnezzar, or really made an impression, because look at what he does in Daniel chapter 3, verse 1. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, because in the dream that he had that disturbed him was a statue. And as Daniel interpreted, it was kind of a statue of different segments, kind of like representing the different empires. And it was one head of gold, the body of silver, and then the legs and thighs of bronze. And it goes on and on and on to the different, representing the different empires. And so he must have said, well, that's a cool idea. So he makes a statue, in my opinion, of the vision or the dream that he had. So King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, and this size of this was 60 cubits, which is in our it would be 90 feet, and 6 cubits wide, which would be about 9 feet. So this, in a sense, would be about 2/3 the size of the Statue of Liberty, all right? So that would kind of give it, not the whole pedestal, but just the Statue of Liberty. And it says, and he set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. So he's erecting this huge statue, about 90 feet, of solid gold. Could you imagine what it looked like in the middle of the sun? I mean, blinding, right? Some sight to behold, but there's a reason why he's doing it. He's not doing this because he just wants to build a statue. He's doing it for a reason. We find out in verse 2. Then he summoned the satraps, the prefects, the governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image that he had set up. So the satraps, the prefects, the governors, advisors, and treasurers, and judges, I don't know why they had to repeat that. You know what I mean? Magistrates and all other provincial officials for the dedication of the image, and the king Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. But he didn't just want them to stand before it. Look what he's telling them to do. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, nations and people of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. We're not asking, we're not recommending, we're saying you have to do this. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipe, and all kinds of music, guess what? You must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up, right? So he's gathering the people. He says, I'm erecting this statue here of pure gold, and I want you to be here and fall down and worship. Why is he doing this? It's because he's trying to consolidate his power. He's trying to, in the decisions he makes from Daniel chapter 3, verse 1, all the way through, is really a man driven to lay hold and kind of control and try to maintain the power that he has. Why is he so fearful of losing his power? Why is he so acting a little erratic and trying to do all these things to flex his political muscle or try to control people? And the reason is the previous chapter. Daniel told him in the vision of all the different empires, he basically said to the king, every empire comes with an expiration date. Every government, every nation will rise and fall. And sir, you're the biggest, baddest man on the planet right now, but there will be an empire that will come after you. So your empire will not last forever. And I think that shook him. And so now you see in chapter 3, he's doing everything to consolidate his power, to flex his political muscle. He's trying to make people do what he wants to do, just to kind of say, look at me, I'm still the man in charge. So he makes this statue, makes everyone bow and worship it, and if you don't, look what happens. And whoever does not fall down and worship this statue will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Now, here's the strange thing, because if you were here or you watched last week at the end of the dream that Nebuchadnezzar, again, Daniel translated, told them the dream and also interpreted the dream. And at the end of that amazing thing, you know what King Nebuchadnezzar said? Daniel chapter 2, verse 47. He says, the king said to Daniel, surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and the revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery. So here's the question. What happened between 2:47 and 3:5? What happens between Daniel 2:47 and Daniel 3:5? And as strange as it is, because at one point he's like, God, this Daniel, the God that you serve, he's the God, the revealer of mysteries. But in 3:5, he's saying, bow down and worship this image. What happened? And it's because, and maybe you've experienced, I call it summer camp syndrome. You go to summer camp and you get on fire, and you just like, you make commitments to God. You come to the front, you cry. You're like, I will be nice to my parents now, and then I won't kick the dog. And I mean, you're just doing all kinds of things because you had a moment of clarity. If you've ever had that in church or in a service where you had a moment of clarity, a moment of maybe a revelation from God, and that you see your life and where it's headed, and you just had, and maybe it was an emotional moment, and as wonderful as those moments are, emotion by itself won't change a life. And emotions at some point will peter out, and just like summer camp for you and for me, we made these commitments, but because it was just emotion in the moment, 3 weeks later we were, being disrespectful for our parents again and kicking the dog again. So all the promises we made, we kind of let out because emotion won't change a life. That's why, as wonderful as church services are and as emotional moments, and I believe God uses these moments. Don't get me wrong, I believe God uses these moments, but understand, emotion by itself will not change your life. You have to have a plan. The moment needs to move you and I to action, and if it doesn't move us to action, just give it time. We'll go right back to the life we lived before. And this is what I think happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. He had a moment of clarity, a summer camp experience, but he forgot that by 3:5. He just went back to his own self because he didn't deal with his king-size ego. He didn't deal with all these things. He just goes back into old habits and to old lives. Now, verse 7, this is what he says. Therefore, as soon as you heard the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and the people of every language fell down and worshiped the image of gold King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And I imagine at that point, King Nebuchadnezzar said, I'm a bad man. I'm making all these people bow down and worship this, even though it's about an image, and even though he's cloaking it in their religion, it's about power. It's about control. And so he's making and everyone's just fall down. Why? Because they're scared. They're scared of what he will do. Well, not everyone participated. Verse 8. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to the king, King Nebuchadnezzar, may the king live forever. Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. So you better do it. You better fall down and worship, or you will be thrown into a furnace. And so these guys, verse 12, but, as they're kind of tattling now, but there are some Jews who, if you set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, that's key, because they're like, there's someone you, king, put over us that we're not happy with, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you. That's a tattletailer if I've ever seen one, right? They're like, shame, shame, I know your name. Your majesty, they neither serve your gods. I mean, this is so, trying to incite this, right? They neither serve your gods or worship the image of gold you set up. And king, you have rules for this. And they don't even care about your rules. In fact, I think they were even talking about your mama. I don't know if that was in there. Maybe just my interpretation. And you know what's strange about this? In Daniel chapter 2, these astrologers were about to be put to death because they could not interpret the dream of Nebuchadnezzar. And yet, who rescues those guys, those jokers? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel. But they don't care now in Daniel chapter 3. They're jealous, and they want vengeance. So, what do you do when the whole province in Babylon's bowing down, and it seems like some even Jewish people were bowing down, they were part of it? How do you react to that? When everyone, or in that section, except maybe all we know is the 3 that don't bow down, do you say, it's not a big deal, it's just 3? not if you're sensitive and have an ego. Verse 13. This is how you respond. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. So verse 14. Then Nebuchadnezzar said to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, does anyone need to go through that again? How many times have we got to go that? That's a big band. And all kinds of music. If you're ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. You know, in a sense what he's doing? I'm giving you guys a second chance. I don't think you heard the band. And do I need to tell you? It's the harp, the lyre, the zither, and all that. You've heard it. But even if you didn't, I'm giving you one more chance. But if you do not worship it, guess what, guys? You will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. You'll be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. And here's the next part. It's so good. He says this, but then what God will be able to rescue you from, get this, my hand. This was not trying to convert people to a religion. This was not Nebuchadnezzar trying to say, my gods are better than your gods. This was a control. This was a political muscle being flexed. This was a way to say, I'm proving that I'm the person in charge. You better listen to me. And this is the problem. You see, Nebuchadnezzar, for his whole kingdom and his whole life, he had so much power and he could put to death people that didn't agree with him. And so he would use that and manipulate people to do what he wanted. And just like he did, he says, if you don't bow down and worship, you'll be thrown into the fire. And people are driven with self-preservation because they don't want to die. So they're like, we'll do whatever you tell us to because we don't want to be thrown into a fire. But these three young men don't care about self-preservation. And guess what? You can't manipulate someone who doesn't care about saving their own life. Boy, it's really quiet in there. So, this is what they say. This is so good. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king. What do you reply to someone who is in control, who's over you? This is what you say. King Nebuchadnezzar, so they're still respectful. We do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. That's the Old Testament mic drop if you didn't just hear it. That is amazing because I don't know about you, but I suffer from a disease called argument. I feel like I got to argue on all kinds of things. And I don't know if you know this, but I'm kind of opinionated. And some of y'all are opinionated in here. How many would just raise your hands and... Okay, there's a lot more people that needs to raise their, yeah. But yes, we get it. Yeah, we're opinionated. So if you're opinionated, you need this verse. Because Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego give us an out. We don't need to argue every time. We don't need to disagree every time. And a wise man once said, don't argue with stupid. So this is what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did. They're like, we're not going to have an argument. We're not going to tell you all about this. It's obviously what we're doing. We're standing, everyone else is bowing, and you're mad. We don't have to talk about it. That's the situation. And so this is what they say. Get this. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, guess what, King Nebuchadnezzar? The God we serve is, help me with this word. One more time. Able. The God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. And that is where most Christians focus on. And it's powerful. Just declaring that God is able. But that's not all. The next verse is just equally as powerful. But even if he does not. Whoa. No, God always rescues. Whoa, hold on. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have just said, God is able, but if he chooses not to, because God has a plan. We want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. And at this point, what you now see is where I think Christians get confused, is this idea of God's sovereignty and my faith. Next slide. My faith in God's sovereignty. See, oftentimes people wrap their faith in promises that God never promised. Because at the end of the day, God is sovereign, and we learned that in the first chapter, right? God has a plan, and he has a purpose, and sometimes our faith is wrapped around the wrong thing. Sometimes our faith is wrapped around the ability to believe and just believe hard enough that will change it. But God is sovereign. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had basically said to King Nebuchadnezzar, we believe in the power of God, and he can and will deliver us, but he may choose to deliver us in a way that we don't want to be delivered, but he is sovereign. And I think we got to be reminded, ladies and gentlemen, that God's sovereignty, and not wrap our faith in anything else but our heavenly Father. And say, God, at the end of the day, you choose. If that means I'm not going to be healed, if that means I'm not going to be rich, if that means I don't get that Lamborghini, okay, that's a personal thing, sorry. If that means that you are sovereign, I submit to your sovereignty. My faith is not in my ability to believe. My faith is in you, Heavenly Father. And so, they just dropped that on Nebuchadnezzar. So what does Nebuchadnezzar do? Does he say, oh, I'm just joking. You guys could just go off? No, you don't do that with someone who's sensitive and has a huge ego. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. And then, you know what he does? Again, this is theatrics. Because what do you do to try to manipulate someone who says, okay, kill us? We're still not going to bow. You know, I believe God's able, but even if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow. You throw us and kill us. You can't manipulate someone like that. And so, what he does, this is all theatrics. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter. And in ancient times, the hottest you can get a fire is with billows, and you can only get it up to 1,500 degrees. Don't ask me how I know that. There's just too much research I've been doing. But you can do that in the ancient world. Well, you can kill someone with a lot less effort. Why is he's like, look, guys, 7 times hotter. Be scared. You can't scare someone. You can't manipulate someone who says, my life's not my own. And if I die, I die. And then he commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I mean, he's like, don't get the weaklings. I want tight knots. I want the muscle guys to come out and tie them up. Why? It's theatrics. It doesn't matter. You're being thrown in a fire. And throw them into the blazing furnace. The verse continues. So these men, wearing their robes and trousers and turbans and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. Verse 22. The king's command was so urgent, and the furnace was so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Kind of backfired on him because he was trying to make a big point, and as a result, some of his own men died as a part of that. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. So they're in. Nebuchadnezzar, obviously, there's a lot of people here because you're making a point. You're saying, look at the power I have. Look at my political might. Don't cross me. Do what I have to say. Verse 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, as he's looking in, right? Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire? I'm counting. Weren't there 3? Verse 25. They replied, certainly, your majesty. He said, look, I see 4 men. 1, 2, 3. Wait. 4. Who is that 4th one? Walking around in the fire, unbound, unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Now, what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego just discovered, and what we have discovered, is that God did not deliver them from the fire. God was waiting with them in the fire. That's huge. That's huge. This is the secret. This is the secret when we see someone walking through terrible circumstances and we can't understand how they're able to hold their head up high, and we can't understand why they seem to have so much faith, and we look at our own strength going, there's no way we could deal with that. It's because what they discovered is what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego discovered, that sometimes God doesn't deliver from the fire, but he chooses to deliver in the fire. And sometimes, and what's waiting for you when you find yourself walking through the fire, you find the God of heaven with all the grace and the mercy and the presence and the peace waiting for you, not outside the fire, not waiting for you outside to prepare you, is waiting for you in the fire. That's huge. That's huge. It's waiting for us in the fire. So next time you go through a time, a terrible time, and as you're like, there's no way I could survive this, just know as you walk in the fire, God is waiting there every step of the way. And so what happens at this moment? Nebuchadnezzar's shocked that there's a fourth one. There's another one in the fire. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. And if I might add, I think they said, no, sir, you come here. But that's just my opinion. I don't know if that really happened or not. Which I'd have loved that, right? So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. And the satraps and prefects and the governors and royal advisors crowded around them. Why? Because Nebuchadnezzar wanted to make a point, but God instead made a demonstration. He brought the whole crowd together and was like, look at my power. And God's like, oh, this is a good time to show my might and my power to my people. And so they saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor the hair on their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there were no smell of fire on them, which is a miracle in itself if you've ever gone camping. You smell like a fire. And go on. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, get this, summer camp number 2, right? This clarity moment. Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel. I mean, that's the best he can come up with. I believe it was Jesus, but he was like, the best thing, I don't understand it. It looks like someone's divine in there, but he sent his angel to rescue his servants. And this is what I love. He says, they trusted in him. I mean, they weren't scared of me and defied the king's command. Don't you love it when people talk about each other in the third person, right? And were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, this is really good. Therefore, I decree that the people of all the nation and language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, not to mention that he was saying things about the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Look at what he's saying. This pagan king, he has this moment of clarity. He says, guess what? If you talk bad against that God that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego serve, guess what? You'll be cut into pieces and your houses be turned into rubble, for no other God can save in this way. And at this point, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, let's talk a little bit. You're going back to your old ways. You just want to kill people. What's the matter with you, king? Hold up, buddy. Just let's talk about this, right? And then verse 30. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. And more and more and more you see God has a purpose and God has a plan. And even though they're ripped from their countryside, they're put in place of a kind of a social engineering experiment to try to get them to become Babylonian. They remained faithful to God, and as a result of remaining faithful to God, they grew in influence, and God placed them in a place in this pagan empire to be influential. But the thing that strikes me more than anything is that God was waiting for them in the fire. He was waiting for them in the fire. Now, a modern example of this is from a book I've been reading by John Lennox. And John Lennox is this amazing theologian, amazing preacher, teacher, and he's British, so I think he sounds so good. He sounds like 10 times smarter than anybody. Isn't that true that British people just sound smarter? And because they sound smarter, we just assume that they're smarter? Okay, it's just me. Okay, that's just me. So I love the way he talks and everything. And so he writes this book, and he talks about in 1989, he visited Russia, and it was right after the Berlin Wall fell down. And after the Berlin Wall fell down, communism was just kind of upheaval. And so at that point in Russia, they were welcoming missionaries and welcoming ministers, because I don't know if you remember, and some people in here are not old enough to remember, but in Russia, it was illegal to be a Christian at one point. It was absolutely illegal, and it was a punishable offense. And so John Lennox, and in fact, I got to go to Russia in 1994 and got to see kind of the results of what's happening to that nation after 70 years of communistic rule, and saying, God, we don't want you in this nation. God began to do some amazing things in that country. But John is there in 1989, and he meets up with a fellow Christian, a Christian that lived there in Russia, which was a difficult thing. And as he's talking to this man, he's asking him about his family, asking about all this different stuff, this man began to tell him that he just recently was released from the Gulag, which is a Soviet prison in Siberia. And you're thinking, what kind of offense did this guy do to be sent to Siberia in a work camp? And just use your biggest imagination to think this is not a day spa, ladies and gentlemen. This is the worst of the worst. You know what offense he did? He was teaching his kids the Bible. Let that sink in a little bit. Someone was sent to the Gulag for years because he was teaching his kids the Bible. And so he's in the middle of that, and he's sharing with John Lennox about what he saw and what he experienced. And this is the words that John says. He said, I saw things that no man should ever have to see. He said, the thing I'd experienced, and it would just make us, just our stomachs turn, what he experienced in that moment, for doing no other crime than doing the thing that every father should be doing, is teaching his kids the Bible. And so he's there. And as he's sharing the story, it must be just all over John's face, because the man looked at John and goes, so you couldn't cope with that, could you? Right? As he's sharing all these stories, and John's probably white as a ghost, right? And John answered, you know what? I think you're right. I don't think I could. And you know what this man said next? He said, nor could I. I was a man who fainted at the sight of my own blood, let alone that of others. But what I discovered in the camp was this. I didn't discover it before the camp or after the camp. I discovered it in the midst of the camp, in the midst of the fire. He said this, God does not help us face theoretical situations, but real ones. That's huge. He says, God doesn't help us face theoretical situations. So this idea that, John, you're looking at me and your face is like white as a ghost, saying there's no way I couldn't either. But what I discovered at that camp, like you, I couldn't imagine how one could cope in the Gulag. But once there, I found that God met me exactly as Jesus had promised his disciples when he was preparing them for victimization and persecution. And Jesus did that. He prepared the disciples. He says, you are going to face all things, but know that I'm there every step of the way. And that's what this man said. Just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego discovered that God didn't prepare them before the fire, he prepared them in the fire. That he was there waiting for them in the fire. And this man said, guess what? I discovered God in the camp. I wasn't prepared. I didn't think I had the strength to endure the things that I endured. But God met me in the camp. And God can meet you in your situation, in your problem, in your trial. When you have to walk through the fire, guess what? There's another one in the fire waiting. God's peace, his presence, his patience is waiting for you there to empower you. So hold your head up high the next time you feel like there's no way I could have enough strength. God is there waiting for you. And only those people who actually walk through the fire understand what I'm talking about, that God does not help us face theoretical situations. We're looking at people from the outside going, no way could I be bold enough. No way could I be strong enough. And it's because we're looking at it as a theoretical situation. God really helps us when the real situations come about. That's why I think one of the greatest things is when you and I, as followers of Jesus, actually walk through a difficult time. It's the greatest witness we could ever have. It's the greatest sermon you'll ever preach. It's the greatest declaration. It's greater than any song. It's greater than anything that's taught. It's showing the world this is what we have. I'm not delusional. I've just discovered the strength from my Heavenly Father. Now, so I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this moment because I think this is such a moment here. Because maybe for some of us, you're about to go through the fire and you don't even know it. I can't tell the future. Maybe some of you are about to walk in the fire and you're sensing it and you're starting to freak out. I want you to be reminded that there's another one in the fire. For some of you right now, you're walking through the fire. You just need to be reminded there's another one in the fire, that God is with you every step of the way. I thought, what better way to be reminded than to sing the song, Another One in the Fire? Right? It makes sense, right? So here's the song. I want you to really think, because maybe I want you to really dig down into these words. The song says, there's a grace when the heart is under fire. Isn't that true? There's a grace you only experience when your heart seems under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And then the next part, this is my favorite. When I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning or this fire that I'm walking in, when I see that space, this is the secret. I know I will never be alone. That all the strength, all the presence, all the patience, all the peace that I need is not waiting for me outside the fire. It's waiting for me in the fire. That's why it doesn't help to worry, right? It doesn't help to worry going, oh no, what's going to happen when I get in? Because God's waiting for you in the fire. So this is what I want us to do. Mike's going to sing this song, but this is a full participating event. I want you to stand to your feet and let's sing this together. And in fact, if you're watching and you're in your PJs and you're drinking coffee, I want you to stand to your feet and I want you to sing together. And let's just be reminded that there's another one in the fire.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. When I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There's another in the fire. Standing next to me was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how I've been set free? There's a cross that bears that burden, where another died for me. There's another in the fire. Oh, in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall into space between where I used to be and this reckoning? Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. Here's another in the fire, standing next to me. Here's another in the wall. as the space between west and I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. Oh yeah. Nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus, yeah. He who was and still is and will be through it all. Come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. Oh, I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between west and I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. There'll be another in the fire standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know it's where you'll be. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know it's where you'll be. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know it's where you'll be. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for being here today, and we'll see you guys next week for part 4 of Daniel. You guys have a good one.